Oh, welcome into another episode, another week of the Fergus Spotlight podcast. I'm excited for this one. I feel like I say this a lot, but this episode really has been in the works for a long time. Got a little bit delayed. I was originally going to do an interview with Gail during my city council run, but I don't know if it was a conflict of interest or however that works, but it just didn't really seem like the best time to be interviewing a branch of the city, a city official, rather. I'm not an elected official, but an appointed. Are you an appointed official? Is that how that works?
Hired.
Yep. So it wasn't proper for me to be interviewing you as a city council candidate at the time. So we kind of had to put it on the back burner. And everything times out for a reason. We end up having these conversations right when we need to be having them. So I'm really excited to be getting into the Fergus Falls Public Library today. I've got Gail Hedstrom, the head librarian. Is that what your title is? Or
Library director.
Library director. And I have Arielle McCune. She is the youth services librarian. So I am super, super excited to get into this. We've got a lot to get into. We're going to talk about everything the library has offered our community in the past, is starting to offer now, how libraries came to be. I don't know. How's your library history, Gail?
Fair. I think we can cover it all right.
That's good. I'm excited to get into that and find out how and why we have these services in our community. Obviously, this is a city-funded department. The library is. So we'll get into talking about the era of government efficiency that we're entering, it feels like, kind of with this new election cycle. It really feels like we are entering the era of government cutting and just making sure that we're being efficient. So we're going to find out why the library really, really matters today, because it absolutely does matter for our community. So yeah, welcome in today, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah. I do have here, you brought me some Stumbeano's coffee this morning.
Sure did.
And I'm super stoked on that. I also have the Columbia beans here that I got from Greg and Jenny. So super blessed to have Stumbeano's coffee in the house. Also, sponsors of the show, Outstate Brewing, Atlas Outdoor Services, Victor Lundeen's, Fergus Home and Hardware, Liberty Business Systems, and Wayne Schuett with Century 21. So, all right, let's get into this. Who wants to go first and talk about their backgrounds, their lives growing up, how they got to be here?
I'll
go ahead. Yeah.
Sure,
Yeah.
I'll go first. So I am a third-generation librarian, but I did not know that I wanted to become a librarian until a little bit later in life, when I had already done some college for a while. So I grew up, which you might know this from talking to my sister, we grew up in Southern California, and we moved to Fargo when I was in high school. And so that what is kind of brought us to the Midwest area to begin with. But I have an undergrad degree in English literature, and then I went on to graduate school and have my master's degree in library and information science, and I got that from the University of Pittsburgh. So I've worked in libraries for over 20 years now.
Wow.
And I have worked at the Fergus Falls Public Library with children and with teens for almost 15 years.
What was your growing up? Were you a book reader? Did you have a job or a person that influenced you early on that kind of pointed you in this direction?
Absolutely. So I like to say my family is lousy with English majors. I grew up in a household that read. So I had a really good modeling behavior as I saw the grown-ups in my life read. So I was raised by my grandfather and my mom, and they were avid readers. Both my mom and her brother and her sister, I think, were all English majors, and we went to the library on a regular basis growing up in Riverside, California. There was one big library downtown, and libraries looked a little bit different back then. They didn't have as many maybe programs and events as they do today, but of course they had lots and lots of books. And we would go and we would leave with piles and piles and stacks of books, no limit as many as we can carry. And when I see families do that today, it just warms my heart, and it reminds me of my childhood. So, yes, I had a book-filled childhood, and that's still something that is really special to me today.
So you had a career outside of libraries, really?
I've had jobs, but really
Okay.
like for my career, it's been, I got hired on before I graduated. So I've been working in public libraries.
Awesome.
Yeah, since the early 2000s.
And Gail, how about you?
Yeah, I grew up in Fergus Falls using the Fergus Falls Public Library, which was on Union, where the Daily Journal office is now. And wonderful memories of hanging out at the library. When I was younger, my mom would usually bring me, but then I probably lived 8 blocks away, so I could walk there whenever I wanted. And I maybe was a nuisance, but I did spend a lot of time there. And remember looking at magazines, listening to albums, checking out books, just a wonderful place to spend time. So a library lover. And my husband and I moved to Elbow Lake in 1992.
Where did you grow up? You said
Here in Fergus.
Okay. Yep.
Yep. And I started working at the library there as the director in 1995. So I was there 25 years and then was hired in Fergus about 5 years ago.
Okay. Who was the library director before you?
So it was Aaron Smith. And before Aaron, it was Walt Dunlap. And before Walt, it was Bob Hemmingson. And I was able to work with all of them. They were all in their positions during my time at Elbow Lake, and we're part of the same library system, which is Viking Library System. So I knew them and could work with them a bit.
Okay. So since you mentioned it, get into that, touch on how is the Viking Library System, how is it all connected? Because if there's one thing I love to uncover in this episode, it's just the structure of the library and helping the public understand, like, we fund this through the city. You can probably talk a little bit about how the city funds it, the library. And then also you guys are a part of this Viking library conglomerate, right? Or is that the right word?
Well, so in the state of Minnesota, all public libraries are supposed to be part of a regional system. And I wish I would have brought the map with. I think there's maybe 9 systems in the state or 11. I'm not sure. But in Viking Library System, there are 11 member libraries. We are a federated system, which means we make our own decisions. We hire our own employees. We set our own hours. But we work with Viking Library System on our interlibrary loans, our delivery system, and our integrated library system. So how things are checked out and returned. We also work with them for continuing education, legacy dollars. So it's a wonderful support
So
system.
they essentially, it's like a way for, if you don't have a book, you can get it, or you guys kind of share resources collectively.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
And that's, you said, how all the way from, how far out does that go?
Right. So the 11 member libraries include, maybe the furthest away might be Perm, New York Mills, Wheaton, Browns Valley, Douglas County.
Okay, like Alexandria is part of that, though.
Yes,
That's
it is,
that's the other largest library probably in the system is
That's correct.
Alexandria.
Yep.
Okay.
I think there are 6 counties, right, that
I
are
believe,
part of the Viking Library
Okay.
System. So geographically, it's really widespread if you look at a map, how far-reaching it is.
And then we have to my knowledge, the 2 locations. Obviously, I live right down underneath the Beehive Tattoo Parlor. So I'm right across from the library where you guys are. And then there is a Viking Library location up by the Coke plant, or am I?
Correct. It's not a public library, so you wouldn't go in there to check out books or look for information, but it's kind of where the hub of the regional system is coordinated, and also where the bookmobiles come out of.
Okay. Gotcha. And the bookmobile, that'll be an interesting topic to talk about, because the bookmobile, one of my coworkers mentioned to me, that is like the symbolism of how important it is to get. I mean, that really, when you think about the difference between culture and a society that is educated and grows versus one that doesn't have access or limited access to it, like different countries that don't have access to the public information. Like, the bookmobile was designed to bring this to people, right? Like, it's such a cool thing. And that's like, I feel like the biggest theme of the library is equal opportunity, right? Like, everybody, even if you can't get to the library, the bookmobile should be able to come to your school or come to wherever and get you some stuff. So I feel like it's easy to see, kind of as I go through some of this history here, how and why we as a country have decided to really focus on libraries and making sure that we get information to people who maybe wouldn't have it otherwise. So a little bit more about your background. Did you have careers, jobs before being a librarian here or director of the library?
Well, like Arielle said, I had jobs. I was young when I got into the profession, or young, so to speak, youngish. But I did not know, honestly, I did not know how to become a librarian. I remember going into the Fergus Library, I was probably 20, and asking the librarian, what do you go to college for to become a librarian? I mean, I'd never even heard of library science. So my degree is in library science too.
I didn't know. I'd never heard of that before.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Where do you get that degree from, you said?
Well, my degree is from St. John's University in Queens, New York. I did it online, so I didn't actually get to live in New York, but I did it remotely.
Okay. And how old were you when you went through that program then?
Yeah, I'll tell you. So I graduated from the Fergus Falls Community College in about 1987, and I finished my master's degree in 2019.
Oh, a little bit of a gap there.
A little bit of a gap. Mm-hmm.
But you worked in libraries prior to that
Yep.
then with just a undergrad degree or okay,
Yeah.
interesting. Okay. So the opportunity that ultimately led you to take over the library 5 years ago was what led to that?
Well, Erin Smith, the current director, she was hired as the director of Viking Library System.
Okay. So she moved kind of up or over?
Yeah, yes, indeed. And so I still get to work with Erin and benefit from her knowledge and expertise in her new role. And she would be another excellent guest for you to have on and talk about the bookmobile. That would be a good one. And then obviously, whenever they're hiring major positions within the city, I don't know how many positions that get hired within the city have to go before the council and get hired by the council. But I know like Andrew Bremseth did. Did you have to go before the city council through an application process as well then? Yes.
Both of you guys
yeah.
did?
Yep.
Okay. Anyone that works for the library has to, or do you have the ability to hire staff as well without their approval?
Well, we hire staff, library aides, but I think I haven't had to hire a librarian, but we usually work with the city and their HR department in making our decisions, and then they are ultimately approved, where we actually had to maybe, the council, we were at a council meeting when our positions were approved. It wouldn't be necessary for all staff members.
Right.
Yeah.
But you had to do the whole go to the meeting, interview with. That's an interesting interview, huh? Interviewing in front of the whole city.
My interview, which now, was almost, going on 15 years ago. And so I think maybe the interview process, while some things are the same, maybe would look a little bit different. But at the time, my job interview took place in the council chambers. Okay. Now we hold our interviews, if we have one, at the library itself. But at the time, I interviewed in the city council chambers. And because I was being hired for a youth services position, of course, working with children and students of all ages, one of the things that I did during my interview process was a part of a story time. So I was in, the city council chambers, which is a very formal setting, doing a story time about spoons. I will always remember it. But
and when I interviewed, it's not that we were interviewed by the council, but they ultimately approved the positions. But Arielle was part of the interview committee.
Oh, okay. I love that. So you kind of hired her, sort of, or interviewed her.
We were so happy that Gail applied and ultimately got the position.
Yeah, Gail's awesome.
Yes.
Gail's so awesome that she even brought me a cookie. I don't know if this is, where's this cookie from?
That is from our children's librarian, Krista Kugler, who makes awesome cookies.
It's like a salted chocolate chip cookie here.
Yeah, it is. You're going to love it.
10 out of 10 on that. That is a winning cookie. So, yes. Talk about the structure a little bit more. Do you know if Fergus has had a library since the beginning? Have we funded a library in our community since the late 1800s?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Started off original location. Where was that at?
So it also was on Union, but not where the previous library was, where the journal is office. It was more North Union, and I think it's a house now.
Yeah, yeah. You can drive by. I thought that was a really cool fact when I found out. But that's north on Union. You would just drive by. It just looks like a house, but that was the original.
Like past Holiday?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Interesting.
So going north towards the state hospital. going that direction. Yep.
Oh, right.
Yep.
Yep. Okay, interesting. I'll have to. So somebody lives in the house that was the original library.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I wonder how much remodeling has been done, or how original that building is.
And I can't speak to exactly. I know we have the history, I think, on our webpage even. I can't speak to exactly when it became government funded. Many libraries started out with maybe a women's organization starting the libraries and raising funds for it. So I can't elaborate on that, but definitely has been, a government department for a very long time.
There was, let's see here. I did a little bit of research. There was in the U.S., the Library Services Act of 1956 and Library Services Technology Act of 1996 were the two bills that really paved the way and provided federal funding to improve and modernize libraries. So it probably would have been in that, my guess is, mid-1900s was probably when the government started funding a lot of these libraries. It could have been before that.
Yeah, I think probably before that. The LSTA really was the Science and Technology Act, so really a very specific aspect of library science. And throughout the United States, libraries in different states are run differently. And even in Minnesota, some are funded by the county, some by the city. So
right. I mean, obviously the timing of that 1996 Technologies Act, that's a very much so in correlation with the .com bubble, .com era, the original transformation into the internet web space. And so they wanted to make sure that libraries were keeping up with that and able to be funded to do things like move into getting computers and move kind of away from books and keep up with technology as technology
Not
advances.
move away from books.
Not move away from books, but
that's always been along with the
books.
Yeah.
So there's and it's very, very interesting because obviously access to the physical book really matters in the world that the internet ever were to go away. But everything's available pretty much now on an audiobook. You guys do audiobook services as well through the library.
Yeah, that's actually a really interesting point. Our print collection and our digital collection, as far as checkout numbers, are both very strong. If you came to the library and saw, how many books were returned in a day and checked out in a day, it's thousands. I mean, people, I think, would be surprised. But of course, people love digital books as well, ebooks and audiobooks. I think it's really interesting, though, to note, and the public doesn't really know until we have a conversation with them, that it's really hard for public libraries to purchase some digital content. So when we go to purchase a print book, a hardcover book for the collection, we're buying it from typically a book wholesaler. And so we have, we order for them on a regular basis. And so we'll get discounts, right? So we're getting a discount when we're purchasing that from a book wholesaler. With digital content, it is, I don't know, it's so much more expensive. So, for example, maybe a hardcover book is listed retail price. If you're going to the store and buy it, maybe it's $35, $40, So maybe we're getting like about 42% discount on that or something. It's opposite with digital content. And public libraries are really struggling right now. So there's a book that just came out that's a popular adult fiction book. If we wanted to add that digital audiobook, it's $109 to our collection.
Whoa.
We wanted to, and it's not uncommon for digital audiobooks to be $70, $80, $90. And sometimes we don't even get to keep that digital file forever. So publishing companies are still trying to kind of figure out how to offer product in the digital world, but it's very cost prohibitive. So whenever we have a conversation with a library customer, like, oh, I wish you had that in audio, or you have it in audio, but the wait time is so long, then we are able to have that conversation with them. We understand. We're readers too. We want to read digitally sometimes as well too. But your budget.
How many books do you guys have in that audio library and physical, I suppose, if you know the numbers?
Yeah. So we have about 86,000 items to check out.
Wow.
I can't tell you the breakdown on the digital content because we have two platforms that we use. But I would also mention, Arielle brings up a really great point. In addition to the cost is the metered access. So sometimes we'll own something for a year and have to repurchase, or a set amount of checkouts, like 12 or 24 checkouts. So That makes it a little
Gotcha.
complicated.
Yeah, I would assume that the digital, they have the ability to track how many times that book moves around and gets read and gets checked out, and they're probably going to take advantage of that and charge people for it, because that's how digital works. When you can track how many, it's tough. That is a good thing for people to know, though, that audiobooks is like really, really hard for libraries to keep up with on the funding. That's very interesting. What do you guys know about this? And this came up in a little bit of my research, but what do you know about this? It's the Internet Archive's Open Library Project. Do you guys know anything about it?
Yeah, I've heard of it. I think that there's lots of kind of like open content available, and people interested in preserving
Right.
content, for the sake of historical purposes. There's different ways to do that. That's not something that I use on a daily basis,
Right.
at my job. We were going to kind of lean more towards the databases, I think, that we subscribe to, and the ones that are available through the state of Minnesota.
Yeah.
We really kind of go to those first.
I'm just curious.
Yeah.
I'm just curious because that project is obviously, anytime there's like an open source internet project that's aiming to basically preserve everything that they possibly can. And that's a very, very interesting. There's huge libraries around the world. I mean, you have the Library of Congress. It is probably the largest. It has over 173 million items in it, supposedly.
It's a great facility. I don't know if you've ever had a chance to visit,
No.
but it's wonderful. And you can get a library card there. Anybody in the United States can. It's your library too.
And go check out any of those 173 million items.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Interesting. So, but obviously that's not everything that exists.
Right.
And there's a lot of things that are there and a lot of things that are probably missing. No one could ever possibly keep up with every single book ever written, because I can't imagine how many thousands of books get published every day. But yeah. So anyways, I found that super fascinating. The like open source internet library. It looks like the oldest continuous library. What do you know about St. Catherine's Monastery Library in Egypt?
Not much.
Not much.
I have not been there.
Not been there. It's
No.
the oldest one. Supposedly it dates back to the 6th century and houses some of the earliest Christian texts. So that's very interesting. There's also the Vatican Secret Archives. These are just some interesting history things, but the Vatican Secret Archives supposedly have like the ultimate hidden or early Christian texts, or like I can only imagine some of the writings that are hidden in Vatican's library, their hidden library.
I think that just goes to show that libraries have been around for a long time. And the importance of the written word, and the importance of preserving the written word, and the importance that has on that community,
Yes.
right, and that culture. And they are relevant, hundreds and thousands of years ago, and they still are relevant today.
Yeah, someone brought up in preparation for this interview, you got to ask them, where do they feel like the library ranks in public services that the government, like in government provided services? Like we've got fire, police, education. I mean, you guys kind of fall into the education branch of it, but I would almost even take that a step further, because what you guys are is you're really like, there's the public education for the kids, but you guys are really like continued education and continued access to education for everyone. So obviously, if you want to take a country down over a 2-year period, you bomb them or whatever. If you want to take someone down over a 2-decade period, you strip away their education and you take away their ability and take away their access to the education. So I think libraries are super important. I don't know if they're more important than police officers, but definitely there's a conversation to be had that a lot of people don't realize how important a library is to the ultimate success of our community and how much we're able to offer equal opportunity. So
Well, you bring up a really good point when you were talking about, these historic libraries and how you can really have a negative impact on a culture and on a democracy. But when you think about it, very often you'll hear during wars that targets are universities, libraries, museums. And it's because information is power, right? And they want to strip people of that power and of that self-autonomy and of knowledge. So yeah, it's very important. It is in a part of our democracy is that is really worth defending and preserving. Yeah. And I was going to mention too, like we see between 300 and 500 people a day at the library.
Wow.
Yeah. So as far as foot traffic, that's a lot.
Yeah. And you said thousands of books come in and out of there, like like weekly, daily. Like you don't know the statistics on how many books get checked out of there, do you?
We sure do. So we check out probably, 14,000 items a month. Like, it can range anywhere from 9,000 to 18,000 a month, just depending on the month. So yeah, that's a lot coming in and out. And that's not including necessarily our digital content, which would be additional items on top of that.
And we're not just checking out books at the public library. I can go check out a painting if I want to. That's really cool. I don't know how many libraries do art checkout. That's a unique service, I think, to our library. I'm sure there's some that do it, but it seems very unique to what we have here.
It's called a special collection, one of our special collections. And Gail and I thought it would be fun to ask you some questions when I
love it. Let's go.
When I do a library tour with students or I'm doing outreach. So like yesterday I was at Cleveland Elementary School and I was visiting with all of the fourth graders talking about some upcoming events at the library. Okay. So when we're first having our conversations, I like to know how much they know about their library.
Oh, man.
All right. So this is a question. So
that's why I'm doing this, to learn about the library.
I challenge them. Besides books, can you name 10 things that you can check out at the Fergus Falls Public Library? Wow. So you said one. You said paintings.
Art, paintings. Does a digital book count?
Yes, sure.
A digital book counts. Do you guys have laptops? Or is there tablets or laptops to check out? That's a guess.
We have laptops. We have public computers that anyone can use. And if you want to use a laptop, you can check one of those out to use within the library.
Within the library.
Well,
I'm putting it on the list, or can I not? Because you can't take it out of the building.
Can't take it out of the building.
You have 10 things that you can take out of the building?
We have more than 10
More than
things.
10. I need it.
Yeah. So you're at 2.
Any, I'm guessing, musical equipment? Or no? Do you have any access to musical equipment? Or
within the library, we do have an electronic piano that the public is welcome to use. Okay. But of course, you can't take that home.
Dang.
But if you think in
toys?
The music
kids
realm, maybe you'll think of something that's musically related.
Oh, like CDs or
yeah, we have music CDs,
DVDs, obviously.
We have
movies,
DVDs. Yes.
So what? We're at 4.
We're at 4.
Does it? Yeah. Does the actual? I already said audio books, but the actual audio tapes. Those are
books on CD.
Books on CD.
Sure.
Okay, you're gonna give me that one twice. Okay.
Well, you have digital and you got our physical format.
See, what else? What else? I just haven't. I know you guys got some good coffee in there. I mean, I don't know if we're counting the coffee out the door as an item that you can get from the library.
All right. You want some help?
Yeah, let's have some help.
All right. So we can do magazines.
Magazines, of course.
Yeah.
Cake pans.
Cake pans.
Mm-hmm. Robots.
Oops, go ahead.
I wouldn't have guessed cake pans, but what do you say? Puzzles.
Puzzles.
Board games.
Mm-hmm. I have seen the board game section there. That's really cool. That's probably that's probably the one I should utilize more of, is the board games.
Yeah, it's great because board games are like anything. Some of them can be quite cost prohibitive, or you don't know if you're going to like it. So it's a really good chance to come in and try it out and see if you want to purchase that at home or just try a new game. And I think our game collection and our puzzle collection, they go out all the time.
Yeah. Because some games you only want to play once or twice through. I can't think of a ton of examples, but there's definitely games where after you play through it once or twice, it's don't need to play that one again. Sure. So that's cool. That's really, really cool. What else?
Bicycles.
Really? Interesting. How many bikes you guys got in the fleet?
2.
2 bikes. Okay.
Yeah.
Are they out often? Are they checked out often, or?
No, they could be checked out a lot more.
Yeah. Okay. So come in and check out a bike when it's not winter.
That's a good idea.
Or when it's winter, you do you.
And all of that is free with a library card.
All of that is free. I also want to highlight that you can check out a record player. And we have a pretty cool vinyl collection as well.
Wow.
Yeah. We purchase new vinyl as well as we take donations of vinyl. So we have a pretty eclectic mix of new releases. Try to focus on Minnesota artists, but also kind of nationwide artists too, as well as donated ones. So that's one that's pretty fun too. We also have a music listening station as well, so you can come and listen to a record there.
I love that. I love that. And then, I see the piano with the headphones that you can play on the piano there. You can use a computer. We talked about it, but I don't think it's set up yet. We need a podcast studio in the library. We need a spot for people to come and a spot for the public to come and record their podcast if they want to, huh?
Well, it'd be a good opportunity for Arielle to talk a little bit about our makerspace.
Yeah.
Sure. So the library has a makerspace and a few things going on in there. I think one of the most popular classes or items in the makerspace is our 3D printer. The library has had a 3D printer for probably almost 10 years. This is our second one. And I teach 3D printing classes to students in 4th through 12th grade, and they typically always fill up. Public school students, I've done homeschool sessions, and once you come and you take a class, then you can come and you can use the 3D printer on your own. Or if you're an adult and you want to learn how to use it, you can set up a one-on-one tech appointment with Caitlin Boyer, our adult services librarian. And then you can come, and if you want to print on your own, you can make a reservation in the makerspace and do that.
And just pay for the filament that you use?
When you take a class, you can print something for free anytime you're doing a library program or a library class. If you want to come on your own, it's a very nominal fee just to help, like you said, cover the cost of the filament. It's 5 cents a gram. So things are pretty affordable.
Yeah.
And we also got recently funded from our friends at the library an additional 3D printer to help meet with the demands. So we can have 2 things printing at once, and also a print with some different colors of filament, and that's in the process of being set up, so launching soon.
So that's the makerspace.
That's one of the things in the makerspace.
One of the things in the makerspace.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I've also, the library has a sewing machine. I've taught classes on sewing.
Wow.
I think I did 2 last summer, and out of the, 16 students in 4th through 8th grade, only 2 had used a sewing machine before.
Yeah.
I love libraries as a place to learn technology, early adopters of technology, a place you have access to technology. If you asked how many people had a 3D printer at home and a sewing machine at home, of course some do, but not everyone. So I love the idea that we are allowing students to have opportunities to come and use this technology at the library for free.
Yep. That's the biggest thing too. This goes kind of back to that talk, the 1996, the act, the Technologies Act and all that. Like, libraries have become so much more for our community than just a book. Or like if people have it in their mind that the library just has books in it, then I could see why somebody might be thinking that that's like something that's less important to our society for equal access, just books. I mean, I'm not here to argue against books or argue against physical books at all. I don't mean to offend you guys. I know I'm probably pushing some buttons, but like, as far as keeping up with technology, giving people equal access is really what libraries are all about. Whether it's a book, whether it's having obviously a printer or being able to learn music. It's almost like you can learn anything there. It's like the place you can go to learn anything in Fergus Falls if you have nothing.
And I think it's important to understand, too, I think it's a common misconception that, everyone has a smartphone, everyone has a computer, everyone has internet at home.
Right.
It's not the case. And we hear that sometimes, like, what, maybe somebody might ask, like, well, why do you need public computers? Everyone has, internet at home. Not the case. Whether they live in an area that the connectivity is an issue, so they maybe can't get it or can't get fast internet, or it's an economic burden on them. And so to be able to have a place where we're open 6 days a week and open evenings and open all day on Saturday, that people can come and use the computers and use the internet. Sometimes we get up and walk around for some movement, and I think it's always really fun to, as we're walking around the library, just to quickly note how many different things are being done in the library at any given time.
Yeah.
And reading a book sometimes is not even one, that you see. There are so many different ways that people are using a library at any given time. It's a community hub.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was going to mention too, regarding the internet access, our Wi-Fi is available 24/7 from the parking lot, and we've really tried to make that, boost it up a little bit so that people can work on their homework or job applications. And it's not uncommon for us to see people in the parking lot using the Wi-Fi when we leave. Pretty sad that you maybe have to do your homework or you're studying in that kind of capacity, but it is available. And we also check out hotspots through Viking Library Systems so that people can connect to the internet from home.
Hotspots.
Yeah.
You
Yep.
check out hotspots. Interesting. How do those cost? Are those
So Viking Library System handles those contracts, but
okay?
so I can't speak to that more than the
But for
fact
the
that
customer, it's free.
Right,
Okay.
yeah.
Wow.
Mhm.
Interesting. I wonder if you can get internet across at the park. If you're sitting at the park there with your kids.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think so, but maybe. I mean, it just might. I haven't tried.
You should boost it up a little bit more. I live on the other side of that parking lot. So if you could just boost it up a little bit more and get me some internet over there, that'd be great.
Well, we don't want to compete with our internet service providers, but
Free internet for everybody. Well, I don't know. It really makes you rethink all of it. Like I'm rethinking my whole perception of the library. Even though I knew we were going to get into this conversation, it's the gears are turning here right now, and like how important it is to our community to have access to all this stuff. The real question. It looked like you had a thought. First.
Yes. I mean, I think on a given day, people are in the library using computers to apply for jobs, file their taxes, fill out medical forms, access medical documents,
Legal documents.
Mhm. Exactly. So, the really serious things that we take for granted. Maybe some of us are doing that on our phone, but that's not an option for everyone. And almost every job you apply for now has an online application. And if you don't have an email and you've never used a computer or you've used them very rarely, you need a lot of assistance in that process, in order to have success. We also provide services such as vaccines, scanning, printing.
Pretty much anything you need to do. Pretty much anything you need to do besides podcast. You can't podcast at the library yet. But the real question is, and I'm most interested, I think, back to the topic of Department of Government efficiency and the movement in everything right now. How much does it cost? I mean, obviously it's public knowledge. The Fergus Falls balance sheet is public knowledge. So I'm not asking you anything that's not public knowledge,
right.
But like, what does it cost to run the library?
Well, the library operates on a budget of nearly $1 million, and we receive funding from the city through the levy, and we receive money from the county through what's called non-resident reimbursement.
Okay.
A large amount of our budget is spent on employees and materials. That's probably the bulk of it. So providing access to all of those resources, those 86,000 items that you can check out, that costs money. It costs money to catalog those, to process those so that they last for a long time, so that many users can enjoy them. So there's a lot that goes into running the library.
So
on a daily basis.
say obviously the city levy. What was the other one you mentioned for funding?
Yeah, it's called non-resident reimbursement, and it's
County?
Yeah,
So
it's
all of the funding for our library is within the county or the city. You don't get any state or federal money for the library?
so not directly, but indirectly.
Okay.
We would receive benefits that are maybe funded in that way, but it's not entering our budget unless we were to write a specific grant, perhaps.
Right.
Like for instance, if we were to write a LSTA grant, that would be federal funds coming through the state kind of thing. But
Okay. Interesting. Well, that helps me understand. So it's not like there's not necessarily a federal movement to fund these things. Anything that's happening locally with a library is because we've made a decision within our county or our city to make it happen. Nobody says you have to have a library in Fergus Falls.
no,
Or-
not necessarily.
okay.
But I would say that there are funds from the state that maybe impact, and like our delivery system. Every single day a delivery van stops at our library twice a day to drop off things people have requested and pick up things people are returning. And that comes out of Minitex, which is in the cities. And they serve the entire state. So their funding, they have different funding sources, but if that were cut, then that would impact our ability to provide interlibrary loan to people.
Right.
So we're all very connected.
So that's very, very interesting. So the Viking library system does the bookmobile.
Yes.
Do you know when the bookmobile started? Maybe that's a question for them.
Yeah.
Well,
as
sure.
long as Viking library system has
I
been.
mean, and bookmobiles have been around, forever. They used to be horses, right? I mean,
Oh.
horses would deliver books. I mean, so
Interesting.
just like they delivered the mail. So the history of the bookmobile, generally speaking, goes back, hundreds of years, and that it has, developed and advanced over time. It is really important to have bookmobile services in rural communities where not every town is going to be in close proximity to a brick and mortar public library.
Right.
But also I worked in the cities as a library assistant there after undergrad school. It used to be Minneapolis Public Library System. Now it's Hennepin County. But there's a bookmobile within the city. And the bookmobile went to senior centers and high rises and different areas where maybe those community members, didn't have easy access or knew there's a large population. So bookmobiles they're really important.
Yeah. So going back to the funding a little bit, have you, in your 5 years and your longer stint with the library, have you guys witnessed or seen budget cuts, changes, anything like drastic or major, whether it be an increase or a decrease in the money you guys have to work with from the city? Have you guys seen any of that? Has it been pretty consistent?
I think we have, I'll speak generally, and Gail, as the director, knows probably some more specifics, but we have historically had a very supportive community. We're a busy library, so we have very supportive community members and a very supportive administration and council over the years as that's changed. We have we live in a place that values the library, and they prove it. They come out, they use the library. The referendum to increase to get the new building was passed by a really good, significant percentage. Lots of library support in our community.
Absolutely.
We have felt very supported by the city council, other city departments, and definitely the public. And also along with our regular funding, we also receive donations from the public every day. Every day, people drop off books and puzzles and games, and many of these items get added into our collection, and they really help maybe fill a gap that we might have, or maybe our copy is worn out, so we can put in a new copy that hasn't been read as many times. And additionally, we receive funding and support from our Friends of the Library. They pay for all of our programming, which we would love to talk about.
That's a local nonprofit?
Yeah, the
Friends of the Library?
We would love to talk about the
I
Friends.
would love to hear about the Friends of the Library.
So the Friends of the Fergus Falls Public Library is a volunteer-led nonprofit organization that supports the library in many different ways. But we always try to let the public know that unless we are getting money from a grant, which we do sometimes as well, that money for our programming for children, teens, and adults comes solely from the Friends of the Library.
Wow.
Is made up of community members, the board. They are passionate about libraries. They come in and they are working every day with the library, and then all of the community members that join Friends and pledge some financial support. So when we have book clubs or we offer tech classes and I need filament for the 3D printer, we're doing, Krista, our children's librarian, needs some bells and scarves and other materials to have story time to promote early literacy.
Gotcha.
Those
so all
items,
of that stuff is in excess of the $1 million budget that funds. That's all in excess. So any of that extra stuff that happens at the library is philanthropy, basically volunteer work and philanthropy.
Yes, it is. And speaking of volunteers, we have about 20 volunteers who are scheduled during the week to come in and be at the library, and we could not do it without them. They're a really vital part of the service we provide. They help us process books, and we make an effort to make sure that our items will last a long time. So, for instance, everything gets a plastic cover. We have volunteers who put those on.
That's really interesting. I'm glad you brought that up because I usually ask people about their staff or like how many staff members they have. Some people are, like you guys, extremely reliant on volunteers to make their operation happen. So talk a little bit about that. How many people are employed by the library? And then these volunteers, how do people get involved with that?
Sure. So we have 7 regular full-time library staff members, 4 of which have master's degree in library science.
Wow.
It's pretty impressive, I think.
Wow.
We have 11 part-time library aides, and they really work anywhere from 0 to 14 hours a week. So they maybe work a 4-hour evening shift. We have our 20 volunteers, and we also, in the summer, we hire 5 tutors to provide reading tutoring to students in the community. And that program is run all on donations from the community and grants.
Wow.
And I think every summer we see about 70 different students, elementary students, that come in for free to them reading help.
Wow.
That's another really important service that we provide.
Yeah, because that's,
And our tutors are paid, but again, that's donated funds or grant funds that we use to pay for that. And so it's really a one-on-one 30-minute session for a student, which is remarkable for 8
Do you guys
weeks.
connect with the school for kids who need that work specifically,
We
or
do.
maybe don't have that opportunity? Yep.
If we partner with the school, I think it
Yeah.
initially started. It's always been a partnership, and it's been in place for over 20 years.
Yeah, and we have a
Wow.
great partnership with the schools in the area. Of course, we all have the same mission to support our students
Right.
and to support reading and lifelong learning and education. So, just this week alone, I mentioned yesterday that I went to Cleveland School for Outreach to talk about our winter reading program with all of the 7 sections of the 4th grade class. And
Yeah.
earlier this week, we had 3 different sections of a work-based learning high school class that met at the library.
With Eli Hill,
Yeah,
right?
with Mr. Hill. Yeah,
I've had him.
absolutely.
I had him and a couple students on the show. That's a
Yeah.
great program for our community. That is,
It's wonderful, and we've benefited from. Now I think we have had maybe 5 high school students who have done some sort of internship at the library. And they met yesterday to hear about librarianship and to take a tour of the library and to have their class at the library. Or earlier this week.
love
So,
it.
and for, and thinking about the ways that we connect with and partner with our school system, we have a great partnership. And not all public libraries and public schools are fortunate enough to have a working relationship like that. But in Fergus, we have historically had a really good partnership there.
Yeah. We didn't really talk too much about like events and stuff. I mean, I can't, like, there's just so many things we're not going to get to it all probably in this episode, but talk a little bit about highlighting events, maybe some major ones throughout the year that you guys focus on, and then where people can get that information for events.
Sure. I'll start. I think some big events that are fun to talk about are summer reading program. I think a lot of people, when they think about library programs, usually they have maybe at least heard of a summer reading program. That's kind of a really big one. And the reason we do that is summer comes and students don't have school for 3 months, right? And so we want to try to help prevent something that's called the summer slide, in which lots of tests have been done wherever a student is at the end of one school year, and now they're not kind of a reading over the summer. It's just like reading for fun. By the time they go back to school, not only they're not at that same place, they've actually kind of slid past it and have kind of maybe lower reading levels. And so public libraries for many, many years have offered summer reading programs as a way to incentivize and keep students reading. And that has expanded over the years to, infants through adults. So we have a summer reading program for all ages. I believe last summer in 2024, we had over 1,800 community members that came and signed up for our summer reading program and took part in that. We also have year-round programs at the library. Story time. Krista, our children's librarian, does 5 regular story times a week, Tuesdays and Wednesdays, as well as Thursday evenings. And so you can come and you can bring your, infant through preschooler to the library and really work on your early literacy skills.
Mm-hmm.
We have things like art events for all ages year-round, book clubs. Caitlin offers 3 book clubs, year-round too, on a monthly basis. Lego club. I mean,
Legos. You got Legos at the library.
We have a lot of
We
Legos.
didn't talk about Legos at the library.
We have so many Legos at the library.
Can you
yeah.
check those out?
You can't check them out,
Okay.
but you can come and play with them once a month and build with them once a month at the library.
I love that.
Yeah.
Which really, speaking of like in the facility, in the kids area, there's the playroom, which offers great space for imaginative play. There's the cabin and a boat and toys. We also have Legos out in the library for the people to play with. We have Magnetiles, a dollhouse.
A really cool microscope.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Well, that's awesome. I've gotten to know so much more about the library. I mean, yeah, it's super cool what you guys do. I'm curious as to how you keep up with technology moving. I always ask people if it's relevant. How is AI going to affect the future of your business?
Yeah, this is such a timely question, Jacob, because just yesterday, Caitlin, our adult services librarian, was at an AI workshop, an AI kind of training where, just to kind of understand it more. And so that was held at
Chamber of Commerce.
Chamber of Commerce. So she attended that. So, Gail mentioned earlier, continuing education, professional development. We're doing that constantly at the library. So Caitlin went to this workshop on AI and came back, and then the 4 librarians we met and we talked about it, and we talked about in ways that's going to impact the library and the positive ways in which we can use it and understand it. So we are really trying to stay on top of, current issues, current technologies.
Curated content, like that's the part of it. Generative text and curated generative text, being able to, essentially curate education to somebody, right? Like not everybody learns the same way. You could create customized everything. You could take a book that is some of the most advanced, hard to understand reading level book and give it to me like I'm 5 years old and so I can understand it, and it will do it. Those are the kind of things that, like, in my mind, that's how like libraries could really start to maybe utilize information, almost like that too long, didn't read it. Like, too long, didn't read it. Give me the summary. That's what I feel like that's what AI is doing most to people, and for better or for worse, I don't know. I mean, how do you feel about that? Just give me the information. Don't give me the supporting substance.
Well, I think it really depends on why you're reading and why you're taking that
Right.
information in, right? If you love the written word and you love literature, that synopsis may not help.
Right.
If you can't remember all the details of the book you read 15 years ago, that might be just what you need for that refresher, right? So I think that, definitely libraries in general have been early adapters to technology.
Right.
I think I can remember back in the day, libraries had the little Apple IIe computer for people to come in and play Oregon Train on or whatever was happening, right? So we are early adapters and we want to be cautious about how we use new technologies, and we're learning about this, as quickly as we can, so that if there are ways that we can use it within the library, and we've really talked a lot about definitely outreach, like how can we reach people that may not know about our services? Like how can it be a benefit to that?
Mm-hmm.
We were really talking about AI and in terms of using it as a tool for brainstorming and marketing and thinking of things, differently.
Yeah.
So.
Super good brainstorming. I mean, that's the biggest thing. If you need an expert in your field, or like the best example I have, like if you're like a nurse or a medical person, or you're like in a field where you just can't talk, like can't converse with someone, you don't have somebody who's on the same level of expertise as you in your industry, you can have industry specific conversations with this thing. And it's like talking with somebody who is in your industry and an expert in your industry. So it's very, very, very fascinating for sure. I think there's endless applications. I think the library is absolutely going to be quantum computing and all of that stuff. You guys are going to have to be buying quantum computers soon there. Better up that budget, city. But no, technology is expensive, and it's hard to keep up with it. It's very, 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 very difficult to keep up with technology. So it's good to know that. Do you guys use it a lot, or is this like kind of your guys' intro to AI? Have you guys used it much within the? Yeah,
professionally, I think it's we're just kind of starting to explore different ways, that libraries can use it. And there's definitely resources out there, and we want to, like Gail said, be mindful, and we want to make sure we're using it in appropriate ways and professional ways. And
Yep.
so, but we do really love on Canva the Magic Create AI image generators. We've been playing around with that as
I
well.
love it.
So yeah, so check in with us, in a year, and we'll see where we're at with AI.
Talk to me about this, the book face thing. The pictures where you guys do like reenact the book covers.
Yeah, well,
Those are super cool. That's a super cool thing.
It is super cool.
Yeah.
Krista Kugler, children's librarian,
Okay.
is the one who is coming up with those ideas, and that's her project that she's taken on for years now, and they are amazing.
Yeah.
So our book face comes out every Friday, Book Face Friday, and you can see it on our either Facebook page or Instagram page as well. And she typically recruits other staff members to help with that, and a lot of fun.
It is a really fun way to engage with the community. We do get a lot of
It is.
feedback, and that means a lot to us. And we know people are paying attention and they're interested, and it also promotes books.
It's a good marketing, like it's a good social media marketing mechanism. I think businesses could take notes on that. Once a week, same thing. It's going to be a little bit different, but it's going to be the same thing. And I think people like that. People like knowing there's something to that psychologically, right? That people like, oh, I'm going to get this thing on Friday. So it kind of develops this. It's the reason why they do shows at the same time every week and stuff like that. It kind of hammers it into our remembrance.
I think
So,
it also really importantly brings people a lot of joy. It takes a few seconds
It
to
does.
look at, but it
It
brings
does.
people joy.
It
And I
does.
think that's really important
Yep.
to be able to offer that as well.
All right, let's get into, do you guys have any like thing about the library that you feel like we didn't get to talk about here? I mean, so many things, but like, is there anything that we definitely need to touch on?
I think it's important to talk about the process of getting a library card. And
of course.
Somebody might want a library card, and Gail and I both would love to be in a community where every single person has a library card.
Absolutely.
So library cards are absolutely free. And basically, you just need to come in and fill out this information. We enter it into the computer, and you've got a card. And if you want to fill this out while we're on the air, Arielle and I can talk.
Are you trying to get me to
see-
sign up for a library
Yeah,
card? Did you
we are.
check that I wasn't in the system? Is that what happened? Did you check to see if I was in the system?
I'll know whether or not you're in the system.
I don't know if I am or not. I actually don't. I think I'm in the Alexandria Library.
So we actually have a shared database. So you were part of the same system. So if you do, we'll see that. But we'll issue you a card so we know that you have one.
Okay.
And we don't have a timer going, but we'll see how quick this is. And please note you'll need a 4-digit PIN on there.
So we had earlier this week when I had a work-based learning class, and I was giving a tour to the high school students, and I was walking them through the library, and I had a student who was a senior, and he had asked, "Can you get those DVDs for free?" And I said, "Yep, anything you borrow at the library is free." And he said, "Well, how long can you keep them?" I said, "You can keep them for 3 weeks, and you can possibly renew them." And his comment to me was great. He said, "I'm never using Redbox again." So here we have a high schooler who didn't understand that we had this really great, robust DVD collection. So I said, "Yep, get a library card, and you can check out 12 at a time."
And on that note, we have access to the libraries throughout the state of Minnesota through interlibrary loan and Minitex. So if we don't have what someone's looking for locally or within Viking Library System, we can search the entire state, both public and academic libraries, and usually those items are in within 7 to 10 days.
Dang. Okay. So yeah, it's like and a lot of times the audiobooks are like instant. You don't even have to go to the library to get them, right? You can log on and get them online.
Yeah,
True.
that's one of our 24/7 services that we
Okay.
like to talk about too. I mean, I think if Gail had her way, the library would be open 24/7 herself. But since we are not, there are lots of services that you can do 24/7.
True. So, for instance, you can access the online catalog 24/7. So, if you're listening to something, look at how quick that was.
That was quick. That doesn't take very long to get a library card.
You've got a
Look
card.
at that, and I've got a card.
Yep. And so you can use the catalog to place holds. You can be at home at midnight and log in and decide, hey, I'm going to put some books on hold or movies, or I'm going to request something from another library. And we also let Arielle, we'll go back and forth here.
Sure, we talked a little bit digital content. We have 2
Right.
platforms, so you can have get the free Libby app or the Hoopla app, and both of those have access to ebooks and e-audiobooks. And so you can use those as well if you want to listen to something on your phone or read something on your Kindle or your tablet. So, getting digital content you can do all the time.
Through our webpage, you can access something called MyHeritage. MyHeritage is a web-based site that you can use for doing genealogy work. So you can,
Whoa.
it's
Yeah.
so similar to some of the other programs that you've heard of, but this is free through the library. So
Yeah.
Interesting. Do I have to bring this card in physically to check out a book? Do I need the card?
it's best if you do.
Okay.
We can certainly do courtesy lookups for people, but it is best if you bring it in because then we can make sure we're checking out to the right person. Of course.
Okay.
Yep.
Of course. Gotcha. Awesome. Well, I really appreciated this. I can't imagine anybody heard this conversation and didn't learn something about the library that they didn't know, because that was a lot of information and just so many cool things I didn't know you guys did. I did not have a clue that to the depth of the services that you guys provided for our community. So it was awesome. It was a great hour talking with you guys. I do have a few more questions here that I ask everybody on the way out. One of them being, what surprised you the most throughout your career as a librarian? And the other one is best business advice. So can mull over both of those, and maybe one of them sparks a thought.
I think that, I don't know if it surprised me the most, but that it's 2025 and that the print book is not dead, which I love, because when I was in library school 20 years ago, we talked about that. We talked about what the future might look like and how that might impact people.
Right.
And, there's a place for digital and print, but I love that, the print book is such a special thing. It's tangible. It creates story times, when you crawl into somebody's lap and you can hold a book and read that together. And that's so important. And I love that we have a community that values that. And so I'm pleasantly surprised that print books are still around.
Yeah, I'm not sure what year the Kindle came out, or when those digital readers started to surface. Must have been 2010-ish, probably somewhere around there. But yeah, very, very interesting. We'll see how long we hold on to the pages for. Yeah. We'll see how long we hold on to the physical books for. I hope forever. I hope it's cool. I mean, I don't read books, shame on me, but I listen to them on audiobook. Yeah. I like that.
And listening is still reading. I read most of my books by listening to them. Right. That's just a better format for me at this time in my life. And there's no shame.
Yeah. How about you? Biggest surprise throughout your career?
Just how steadily busy libraries have stayed over the past 30 years, and really since the beginning of time. But during my work period of 30 years, traditionally when the economy is good, library use would fall. That was not true during the past 30 years. Library use has just continued to increase, right? So, oftentimes people, if they have more disposable income, maybe they're buying their own things. But I think people have recognized the value of a public library, and they have just stayed consistently busy, and that busyness has just continued to grow. And people have seen more and more ways to use the public library.
Mm-hmm. So, best business advice. No talking in the library.
Oh, we love people to talk in the library.
Yeah. What's with that? I feel like no talking in the library is kind of like a unspoken rule. Is it really a rule? It's almost like a courtesy to keep the space quiet.
Sure. I mean, there definitely are people there who are working. Definitely people are studying. So we definitely want to have a respectful environment for people to do that. But we also have some really great meeting spaces and conference rooms that people can use for collaboration and to be a little more loud.
And I think we really took that into consideration with the new library design because, we doubled in size and we have lots of different spaces within the building for different types of ways to use the library. So if you want a quiet space, you can reserve a study room for studying or telecommuting. If you want that, it's free and you can use it all day if you want. If you want to come to an event that's lots of people in it, you can come to the library at that time. We have cafe booths and we have all different formats of sitting. And so I think
But
What
you
is-
also have kids playing with toys.
Yeah, they
And like
also have-
playing with toys and screaming and having fun in there too. So
Yeah, and I think that's why with the design with the children's area off where it is, it really kind of helps cushion some of that noise, that
Yeah.
it doesn't leak out to the other libraries. So we will not shush you in the library. So.
I love it. I love it.
And I don't know like business advice, but just kind of a couple of maybe like, mantras or philosophies that I think I like to maintain. And I extend this to the community we serve and to my coworkers. And it's that I want to work with you, not against you. And that if we can ease any burden for you, we hope we can accomplish that. People come in sometimes pretty frazzled and pretty desperate and pretty upset, because maybe they were trying to return something and they needed to print something and they don't have a printer. I mean, there's just all kinds of scenarios that can be very stressful to people. And if we can ease that stress, if we can help people through whatever situation they're in at that moment, we want to do that. We want to be a community partner.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you think about somebody who, let's say you don't have the tools or the means to do your taxes, and all of a sudden you have like a tax problem that you have to deal with, and you have to go to the library to get internet or to get resources to deal with this problem. And that's just one example, but I'm sure there are endless things that come up in people's lives that they're not necessarily in the best place when they come there for your guys' stuff. So, best business advice. You got anything for us there, Arielle?
Oh, let's see. Maybe don't be afraid to ask questions and ask for things. Be curious, and that's in business and in life. But I think there's a lot of opportunity that comes out of asking of questions and having those conversations and really kind of thinking outside of the box. And I'm lucky enough that I work with a really great and supportive staff, and that we do work really well together, and that we work really well in providing help for the community. I mean, being a librarian is a customer service job. We're at a public library. If it wasn't for the public, we would not have jobs. And we all really value that, and we value our community members.
Awesome. Well, like I said, I appreciated this. This was a very, very informative conversation for everybody about what's available at the library. I'm excited for how you guys continue to adapt with technology and adapt and doing stuff. If you ever want to talk about doing anything with podcasting, I might be into it. I might be interested in coming over there and working and helping you guys set something up. But yeah, just again, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for what you guys do for our community. Anyone who's listening, get out and take advantage of these services within our community. Go meet people. We didn't really talk about the social aspect of the library at all, but that's a huge part of it too. I mean, as a single man in my 30s, I don't go to the library a lot, but I'm constantly looking for a social outlet, right? Constantly going to probably spend too much time at the brewery, or wherever, getting my social outlet. So that's another thing that the library offers is a place for somebody to go and interact with some other people and have some other conversations. So yeah, thank you guys very much.
You.
And
Thank you.
Yeah, look forward to it. I got to thank my sponsors again here, Atlas Outdoor Services, Outstate Brewing, Stumbeano's Coffee. It was delicious, very delicious coffee here. Victor Lundeen's Liberty Business Systems, Wayne Schuett with Century 21 Atwood, and of course, Fergus Home and Hardware. So yeah, we've got more of these lined up. I think next few episodes, let's see, I've got a realtor coming in. We're talking with Someplace Safe about human trafficking in our area, which is going to be a very, very sobering, deep conversation. So yeah, looking forward to that. Thank you guys for listening. And yeah, we'll be back.